BC chapter call. Um, as mentioned, I am filling in the very big shoes of Will Cole Hamilton, so we'll do our best here. I personally am attending from the territory of Stanemo First Nations and just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous communities that we all have the pleasure to live in. Um, Today's call is going to focus on the CleanBC independent review and what it means for local government and community-led energy, affordability, and resilience initiatives. The newly released recommendations from the CleanBC review, independent review, I should note, outlines 7 priorities, 31 actions, and 8 guiding principles for renewing CleanBC. Lisa Mack, a climate solutions specialist, and CaroleAnn Leishman, the Climate Leaders Program Manager with Community Energy Association, will share an analysis of the independent review's recommendations and the implications for local governments, highlighting the essential role communities play in advancing CleanBC's success. And then after the presentation, we will have time for questions. In my notes here, it says lots of time. So we will have time for questions. What I'm hoping is the presenters can try to slice off a minute off their presentation. And that will give us a little bit. We hopefully will have about 20 minutes for discussion after the fact. And so in doing so, I will hand this over to CaroleAnn and Lisa.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Hi, everyone. So nice to see all your faces. I know a lot of people on the call today. I'm CaroleAnn Leishman. I'm coming in from the traditional territory of the Tla'amin people, and they are heading into the 10th year of treaty in this region, which has been a real exciting time and a lot of learnings. I am a former 2-term city councilor, as some of you will know, up in the Powell River, Kathat region, and I was also a municipal director on the regional district board, and was very happy to have been involved in Climate Caucus since the very beginning days, and I still love to stay involved. And the BC Municipal Climate Leadership Council, we work closely with Climate Caucus and trying to sort of not replicate what we're trying to do, but we both organizations, of course, want to support elected leaders as much as possible. So I am very grateful to be working for Community Energy Association as the Climate Leaders Program Manager, supporting the BC Municipal Climate Leadership Council, or the acronym BCMCLC, which nobody can ever remember. And so we just recently, we're focusing more trying to get provincial ministers on dialogues with elected leaders. So some of you will have been on the last few minister dialogues we hosted. We did have ministers Randy Neal and Kelly Green on a call in December. And just last week, we had Minister Dix on a call. And so trying to really bring you elected leaders together with provincial ministers and their senior staff to make sure that, you know, your priorities and your concerns are being heard. And so anything coming out of this session today, if it's something that the Minister Dix should hear, I will be including it in my follow-up with Minister Dix from last week's call. So BCMCLC has been around since 2009, actually, and has a steering committee of Sue Ellen Fast is on the call here, has been on the steering committee for a number of years, and Vicki Brown, Mayor of Cumberland, is on the call, is on the steering committee. And so we try to support electeds and have strategic engagement to make sure that communities are not replicating efforts. They're replicating efforts without extra work. So we're trying to share good news stories and challenges and all of that. So I am going to hand it over to my colleague Lisa Mack at Community Energy Association, who will do a bit more on what Community Energy Association is all about briefly before diving into the CleanBC review that CEA did a bit of an analysis on. And then we'll have some dialogue.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Caroline. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I apologize for my lighting. I don't really know what's going on with it, so I'm kind of in this weird shadowy place. Let's get started. I appreciate all the introductions folks have done in the chat, but I do appreciate a visual. So if you all kind of follow with me, I'd love to see where we're all joining from and just kind of see the diversity of regional perspectives that we all bring together. So if you kind of hover along the top or the bottom of your Zoom window, there should be this little menu bar that comes up with a pencil symbol called annotate. And if you click that on the left side, you will have this menu of options where you can choose a symbol, like a star or a heart. And if you can just kind of place that on this map of where you're joining from, that'd be really great. My apologies, Olivia. Ontario's not on this map, but we know you're there. Is everyone seeing the map? Okay.
I can't get it to work.
I can see the map, but I can't. Oh no, I can. New technology.
I'm still looking. Every time they change things. By the way, if I can't find it, I'm from Golden, home of the Ktunaxa and Squepnik indigenous nations, which we're really grateful for taking such good care of where we're living now. And I'll keep on looking.
Um, yeah, I myself am joining from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations, also known as Vancouver. And I am forever grateful to be able to call this beautiful place home and to live, work, and play here. And so even if you're not able to find the stamp or annotate where you're from, I hope you take a moment to just appreciate the land on which you're joining us from today as well. But yeah, okay, we see a few things coming up. But I'm gonna just take a quick screen grab of this because I really love seeing the visual of where everyone's joining from. Awesome. All right, thanks everyone. So moving along, CaroleAnn did a fantastic introduction to CEA, but we are a BC-based nonprofit working exclusively to support local governments and Indigenous communities on climate and energy initiatives. We've been around for about 3 decades now, which is pretty cool. And so we've gained a ton of experience and a lot of expertise in supporting the communities that we work with. We're a team of about 50 people kind of scattered across the province, and that allows us to be able to bring our own regional diversity to the work that we do, but also connect with people and meet communities where they're at because we are physically located in those spaces as well. Yeah, and so we kind of support communities in anything that they might need, whether that's from initiating projects throughout the internal the whole implementation process of it. We do a ton of engagement and communications work because what's the point of doing good work if no one knows about it? And just again, to help replicate those outcomes that we want to see without duplicating efforts. A lot of what we do is trying to share that information so that we kind of break down those silos across communities and just to help move that dial a little faster. And a lot of our work is concentrated in the areas of transportation, buildings, and waste, just because those are the main buckets that local governments have jurisdiction over and how they can influence the emissions associated with those. And I think a lot of you might be familiar with this. It kind of translates into the big moves, some of the key areas where local governments can take action. Again, transportation, buildings, and waste. So for transportation, that's shifting beyond the car. So promoting active transportation or public transit, electrifying passenger transportation, decarbonizing commercial transportation. So some of the medium and heavy duty vehicles. And then for buildings, we promote high performance, energy efficient new buildings, then also look at ways to support decarbonizing existing buildings and fuel switching. And of course, with waste, also looking to close the loop there. One of the ways that we support communities is through our peer networks and collaboration. I do apologize for this rather messy slide. So we have topical and regional peer networks where we bring staff together and elected officials to talk about key priorities. And so each of these kind of represent a different bucket. We have peer networks on electric mobility, step code, retrofits, embodied emissions, digital permitting, resilience. And they're just spaces where local government staff can come together, learn from each other and from experts, share what they're working on, share updates, their successes, their challenges, try to figure out problems together, share solutions, just find ways that they can, again, replicate those outcomes that we want to see without duplicating efforts. And again, we also have regional networks across the province, just recognizing that different regions have different priorities, different contexts, different capacity. And so being able to connect with your neighbors to work on something from a shared perspective is incredibly helpful. So we have one for TOCAN, that's the Thompson Okanagan, VICAN, Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, NorthCan for the North, KCAN for the Kootenays, and then the Lower Mainland as well. And then, of course, we have the BC Climate Leaders. That's a space for elected officials to come together. So this slide, just to again kind of go over where jurisdictions of the different levels of government are, just recognizing that we are working at the local government space, but we are talking about CleanBC today, which is a provincial document, and really looking to see what the local government role is in implementing CleanBC objectives. So just as a quick reminder again, while the federal government is kind of responsible for coordinating overarching environmental policies and programs and setting national standards, the province sets targets, and then it's the local governments that really implement the actions needed to reach those targets. And local governments have jurisdiction over zoning, land use, so that informs where and how our buildings are built, roads and other assets. Buildings and transportation, again, account for the biggest portions of community emissions. So local governments have a major role and responsibility in supporting the decarbonization of our communities. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, we'll get into the CleanBC review now. Again, because of the work that we do with local governments and through our peer networks, we, hold on, I'm just gonna quickly clear some of these. All right. We have kind of access to like many networks of local governments and communities. And so we felt it would be a really great opportunity to ensure all those voices are heard in the CleanBC review. So in the summer, we had 4 working group meetings where we brought everyone together, got their perspectives, and then compiled all that to form 3 submissions, one on behalf of the local government pyramid networks, one on behalf of NorthCan. Again, NorthCan is a slightly different model to our peer networks. And it was really important for us to ensure that the North had their voice heard as well. And then we also submitted one on behalf of like our organization, ASCA, just based off of our experience and our expertise and our perspectives on working with local governments. So through all of that, we had 5 top priorities that we kind of consistently heard from local governments. And it was through these priorities that we then used as a lens to review the CleanBC review recommendations, just to see where there was alignment and where there might have been some divergence or gaps or additional information there. So one of the first priorities we had was to establish a clear, coordinated, long-term provincial energy plan and strategy. So what we heard a lot from local governments was that they really needed to understand what the energy mix was for BC now and moving through the future as we transition. So we needed a roadmap that integrates electricity planning, renewable fuels, energy efficiency, resilience, and regional needs. Just having that coordinating strategy would give certainty to local governments, industry, utilities, allow for adequate planning, informed decision-making around policies and programs that are needed to support the energy transition. Again, just really needing clarity on what that mix is. The next one we heard was around maintaining strong, ambitious climate policies, including not backtracking on the energy step code, zero carbon step code, or the zero emissions vehicle mandate. So we've heard time and time again that these policies are working, they take time, and that backtracking is a significant risk to the local climate action that's being done, and it really disrupts that market transformation. Having that roadmap, having those timelines set with the incremental increases really signals to the market that this change is happening, and it allows adequate time for the folks to be able to adapt, to plan, and to change it to meet those targets. And so any kind of backtracking or flip-flopping really disrupts that and really makes it hard for people to be able to plan and know what's going on. Third, provide long-term predictable funding and capacity support for local governments. Communities, especially small, rural, and remote ones, need ongoing stable funding to plan and implement climate actions. The Local Government Climate Action Program, LGCAP, should be maintained and expanded to enable local governments to act on climate priorities. Fourth is invest in workforce development to enable low carbon retrofits, high performance construction, and clean transportation. Big transitions coming up. We need people to do it. So really needing the province to invest in that workforce development so that we have the capacity to be able to implement the policies and programs that we want. And then the fifth one was to ensure CleanBC priorities and programs are equitable and regionally relevant, especially for rural and northern communities. Again, BC is a big province, lots of different diverse regions and capacity and context. And so being able to have regional flexibility to support different needs to enable leadership in climate was really important. Okay, so now moving on to what was in the report and how, and how it aligned with what we heard from local governments. And so when it comes to establishing a clear, coordinated, long-term provincial energy plan and strategy, the report largely, I think, agreed. There was many actions around supporting what that energy strategy would look like, including calls for acceleration of clean electricity production and electrification, advancing integration of gas and electricity resource planning. So currently the utilities do their own resource planning, and so that can feel quite conflicting or not clear what's happening. And so really calls for the need to have that integrated resource planning, again, to support a clearer understanding of what that energy mix is for BC and what it will look like as we continue through this energy transition, and understanding what the roles of different energy sources would be. Continued prioritization of energy efficiency, enabling electric utilities to acquire additional energy capacity and transmission more proactively. And so we're seeing this as well through the various calls for power that we've already seen and will continue to see. And then increased production of clean biofuels and renewable natural gas. So again, just looking for more energy sources, and again, just all to support this clarity around the energy mix and what that strategy is so that local governments are able to plan and have informed decision making when it comes to where they invest their resources for and which policies and programs to support. Next up, when it comes to maintaining strong, ambitious, and climate policies, so I'll split this up into buildings and transportation. So for energy and zero carbon step code, just for a quick refresher for anyone who needs it, energy step code focuses on energy efficiency. So it really focuses on the envelope of a building. And as of May 1st, 2023, step 3 was required. So that's like 20% more efficient than what the baseline was. And it is a performance-based code, but there is an opt-in prescriptive pathway. Meanwhile, for carbon step code, that focuses on the operational emissions, so looking more at the mechanical systems of a building. And then as of March 8th last year, emissions level 1 was required. So that's just measure only. There's no actual limits to emissions at this point. It's just a measurement just to build up the understanding of like how buildings are operating. And that one has both performance and prescriptive pathways available. So for step code, it was available in 2017, but became mandatory in 2023. It says 2022 here because that was the original timeline. The idea was that every 5 years we would move up a step. And so according to the original timeline, it's expected to move up to step 4 in 2027. And that would be 40% better. And what we found with energy step code when that came into place was, well, it was great that buildings were or would be more energy efficient. What was found that even if you had a step 5 home, so the most efficient home you could have, depending on your mechanical systems, depending on your energy source, it would still be quite, it would still be like a very heavily emitting home. And so that's how zero carbon step code came into play, came into looking to address those emissions. Because after all, space heating and water heating account for a huge chunk of the emissions that come from a home. And it was also in the original CleanBC, one of the commitments was that all new buildings will be zero carbon and that all new space and water heating equipment will meet the highest standards of efficiency. Again, just recognizing that their mechanical systems in a home really account for the emissions. And so addressing that would help lower would help address climate. And so for carbon step code, so we had measure only for 2025, and there was a commitment to move up to either emissions level 2 or emissions level 3 by 2027. Again, next year, we don't really know, but then we would move up to the highest level, emissions level 4, by 2030. And so kind of put that into context with energy step code. This is kind of where we're at. We're at step 3 for energy, EL1 for carbon, with the expectation that we'll move up to step 4 next year and either emissions level 2 or 3 as well. And continuing on through 2030 and 2032, we'll be at the highest levels. That said, the recommendations in the CleanBC report suggest making the highest step of step code, so step 5, voluntary, so kind of scrapping it all together, and to push it, moving up to step 4 from 2027 to 2030 instead, so delaying these timelines. Similarly, on the carbon side, it keeps emissions level 3 and emissions level 4 for the same timelines for climate zones 4 and 5, so the warmer climate zones, but then it pushes UL3 for climate zone 6 to 2030, so delaying carbon step code for colder climates. And then kind of a bonus one, the highest efficiency equipment standard. So this states that all new space and water heating systems must be 100% efficient by 2030. This is a regulation the province has been working on for years now. They did engagement back in 2023, with the expectation that it would be required as of January 1st, 2030. So a lot of local governments have been planning for that, kind of getting ready for 2030 implementation date. But the recommendation is to delay it by a few years, which again kind of goes against the original commitment of being zero carbon by 2030. So that's on the building side. On the transportation side, the Zero Emissions Vehicle Act set increasing percentage targets for new light-duty vehicle sales to be zero emissions. So the targets were 26% of all new vehicle sales would be zero emissions by 2026, so this year, and they would move up to 90% by 2030, and then finally reaching 100% by 2035. We are on track to meet and surpass the 26% target for 2026. I think last year we were at 22%. But there were concerns about reaching the 2030 targets, especially after the rebates were scrapped earlier last year. Just because, again, having rebates really help drive EV adoption. What's funny is about a week before the review recommendations were released, the province announced that they were scrapping these targets altogether, and that they were aligning with the federal ones when they become available sometime this year. So we'll see where that lands. And the actual recommendations in the review were actually just to reduce the target to 50-60% by 2030, and then kind of delay that 90% target to 2035 and kind of scraps the 100% target altogether. Yeah, which is, I think, a shame because BC is a leader when it comes to EV adoption. But again, we'll see actually what comes out of this. And especially because without targets, it is a little tricky to signal to market that this transition is happening and there isn't any incentive for that market to change. Except along with their recommendations around zero emissions vehicles, they would also recommend a requirement for 100% EV readiness for residential parking for new and substantially upgraded buildings, which is really great to see. A lot of local governments in BC are already have an EV readiness bylaw where they require all new construction to have EV charging readiness. And that really just helps address the barrier of EV adoption, because if people don't know where or how they'll be able to charge their vehicles, that really hinders EV adoption. So making sure that all new buildings have that capability really helps support that transition. So that's a pretty cool recommendation. That's on that. And then on the third priority around providing long-term predictable funding and capacity support for local governments, again, it was recognized that local governments are key partners and contributors. And so the recommendations include extending funding for LGCAP, and as well as equipping local governments with a roadmap of CleanBC priorities. There are a ton of actions in CleanBC, and when local governments have limited resources and finances, knowing where to invest that and having some guidance in that, where to invest that, is incredibly helpful. The recommendations also call for improved timeliness, granularity, and sector coverage of CEI. So the community energy emissions inventory, again, just enabling better data to support better decision making and allowing local governments to make good data-driven, informed decisions around their policies and programs. Fourth, invest in workforce development to enable low carbon retrofits and high performance new construction and clean transportation. So yeah, CleanBC policy and programs are driving job creation. We're seeing a lot of that in places where there are policy and programs that require kind of new skills and jobs. But there is a gap in the investment and planning to support that workforce development, the attraction and retention, and the training that's needed to sufficiently transition the workforce and to fill the roles that are needed for the clean construction and transportation industries. So the recommendations in CleanBC are to align labor market outlooks with workforce development plans and to provide support for training requirements. And what's also really cool is they do call out the Youth Climate Corps and recommend like a lot more investment and supporting that organization to help develop youth engagement in green jobs, so to speak. Currently, the province is developing a workforce readiness framework called Future Ready Skills for the Jobs of Tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what's in there. And then lastly, looking at how to ensure that CleanBC priorities and programs are equitable and regionally relevant. So the report does recognize regional differences, and it recommends flexibility that reflects the differences in climate and context. However, we only really see that in delaying timelines for things like step code, rather than ideas for supporting like investment or programs, additional training opportunities, additional incentives to enable Northern and rural leadership. I think that's more of what we were hoping for when we really called out the need for flexibility and regionally relevant programming and support. So overall, the messaging in the recommendations and the report was that CleanBC is working. It is. And that we need a renewal, not a retreat. And so it's great to see that a lot of the commitments and programs and policies that have resulted from CleanBC weren't entirely scrapped. A lot of it was either like tweaked or adapted given the current context that we're in. 2025 was very different from when CleanBC was first released back in like 2019 and 2021. And I think a very key concern is affordability. And you see that woven through the entire report and all the recommendations. Affordability is a very key lens from which the recommendations were drafted. And then we also see a shift in the communication of benefits. And so as we all know, climate action has a ton of co-benefits, whether it's cleaner, safer, healthier communities, better homes, better connectedness, more resilience, and actually it's oftentimes a lot more cost effective as well. And so really advocating for a shift in language from emissions targets, so the intangible, to something a lot more tangible that represent that real world progress. So rather than looking at percentage of GHG reductions, really look at the number of heat pumps installed and look at the number of EVs that are being registered. So real, tangible indicators that show that that shift is happening. And I think that also reflects a change in how we work and how we are seeing climate communications and just what resonates more with people. Yeah, again, maybe not GHGs, but looking at messaging around health and safety and more comfortable homes, equity. And so, what next? So we don't know if the province will respond to the recommendations. There's no commitment to do that. But the budget will be released in February, and I think that will be quite telling in yeah, how they've been influenced by the recommendations, let's say. I think, yeah, keeping in mind that there will likely be some cuts. I think a lot of concerns around cuts to the energy savings program or CleanBC rebates for retrofits. That said, though, there is the Canada Greener Homes Affordability Program, which would provide additional funding to support those programs. And I think the agreement's still being finalized with the province, but it's expected to expand programs to cover more households, and there'll be a focus on electrification as well, not just efficiency. On the EV side, again, rebates were scrapped, but there is the very new relationship with China, and how we'll be bringing in 49,000 EVs, and I think that's increasing up to 70,000 per year. And they'll be at a price point of around $35,000. So, still a lot of money, but maybe more accessible to folks, even without the rebates.
Lisa, can I just
yeah.
jump in if I can? Just a reminder of time. We have 10 minutes left.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
And we haven't had a chance for questions. I'm not sure what CaroleAnn wanted to speak to, but if we could try to wrap up at least maybe 5 minutes for questions so people with something really burning can ask that question.
All good. Thank you so much for that. I have 2 seconds. I'm good. And yeah, and then call for power. So we'll be seeing an increase in power, electricity, and renewables, which is fantastic. I think, yeah, there was like the recent 2024 call for power, which will add another 3,000 gigawatt hours by 2028. And then the one from last year, we've received, I think, 13 out of 14 proposals, and 13 of which were wind, and that'll add another like 5 to 10,000 gigawatt hours, which is really great to see. And then again, just any action to advance climate action through other lens and framing. So maybe kind of moving away from climate language and really focusing more on other benefits like health, safety, resilience. And that is it. I'm so sorry. I should have kept an eye on time, but I really appreciate that. We do have a Menti just to kind of gather some thoughts from folks, if you don't mind kind of pulling out your phone and scanning the QR code or going to menti.com and entering the code.
And then there's a test.
Oh God. Yeah, you better have been taking notes. Okay. I'm still kidding. Okay.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, just to build on that amazing presentation, we did have Minister Dix, as I said last Monday. For those of you who were not able to attend, I can post the link to the replay of the meeting in the chat for you to go through the whole thing as well. But it was interesting to hear Minister Dix say that he felt that the CleanBC independent review was the best review he's ever seen. That he felt it was realistic and that there weren't any recommendations coming out of that he felt were just not possible. So he had a lot of positive things to say, and I did appreciate, him suggesting that we do need to sort of shift our language a bit and acknowledge that, we need to talk about affordability, as Lisa was saying. Like we all know that we need to talk about affordability and health and safety to sort of bring some of the unusual suspects to the table in our conversations, because having been an elected official like all of you, if you can't get even just a majority of your council or board to vote with you on something, it's just not going to happen. So it's finding those shared values and that common language and how to frame things that will bring people along to support things. So it's good to hear the province acknowledging that they're, going to try to shift their language, but they, Minister Dix was very clear that, EVs are the future and that, climate change is a big problem. And, he wasn't trying to sort of shuffle it off to the side, but the focus obviously seems to be more of an economic lens right now. So there have been some great comments in the chat that I've made note of and really appreciate that. But so if you go to the Menti, just the first one is just, how are you feeling? Lisa, can you share the share screen? I think everybody's probably had a chance to go on there. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, how are you feeling just in general, or because of the state of the world, or after this presentation, or heading into the weekend? Just if you want to just post how you're feeling, that's just a nice way to share. Yeah, exactly. We all have a lot of the same feelings right now. And then just go to the next one, if you would, Lisa. So the next one, yeah. As I said, I'm going to send a follow-up to Minister Dix early next week, and I will be including notes that I've seen in the chat here and comments. And there were a lot of good questions in the Q&A from the meeting last week that I'll be including to Minister Dix as we head into the throne speech on the 12th of February, and then the budget the following Tuesday, the 17th, I believe. So yeah, if there's anything that you really want to share to the province right away next week, right now, let me know and post it in here. And yeah, I love that. Retrofit. Like there's so many things that you all know, being the usual suspects, seem like you're banging your head against the wall repeatedly saying the same, things. But I did have a conversation with Minister Dix back in November, and he told me that he reads everything. So every letter that gets sent, every email, every motion passed, he's paying attention to all that stuff. I mean, he's a very, long time politician and has an amazing staff, but he really does. He knew things. He knew things that I was surprised that he knew of, sort of advocacy that I felt was happening a bit more in the background, and he was well aware of it. So they are paying attention, and it is so important for, as elected officials, even if your whole council isn't on board or your whole regional board, like just send emails on specific items to the province, and they definitely are listening. Before we change the slide, John, you have your hand up?
Yes. I just want to say we're focusing a lot on individual vehicles, which have their own issues, whether they're EV or gas. And where we have, I think we also need to look at, in some small communities, it's not transit is simply not practical. And I'm in one of them, Golden, but our how to say, we control zoning. We can control for density. We can make the fact, how to say, build the situation so transit is a possibility in one of its many forms, because loading up buses a hell of a lot less onerous on the roads, everything, than a whole bunch of cars going in their own different direction. That's something we need to think of, and we can make some changes there. So yeah, that's my little rant.
That's great, John. Really appreciate that. Yes. And I would love to get Minister of Transportation and Transit on a call if possible. I think that would be a big driver for a lot of you, especially. So yeah, really appreciate those comments, and I think Minister Dix can hear some of those as well. Okay, good. So there's some good things coming in there. We've got just a couple minutes left, so let's just go to the last Mentimeter slide, if you would, Lisa. And so, yeah, top priorities or concerns heading into 2026, the final year of the term. Like now we're, we're months away from the next election, as you all know. So, yeah, start thinking about the next term. If you're not running again, who can you lift up? And, we're here to support people who are working on climate action. And, yeah, so just wanted to acknowledge that we are months away from the next election.
CaroleAnn,
Yes.
could we take the last 2 minutes to see if there's anyone that does have a specific burning question?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't know if anyone has any hands up here. If not, Okay, CaroleAnn, go ahead. You've got like 1 minute to say your big piece, I guess, then.
Yeah, just thank you all for all the hard work that you do. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, it was hard enough back in, COVID and all of that nonsense, but I mean, it doesn't ever get any easier. And I just really appreciate everything that you're all going through in these tricky times. And we're all here, Climate Caucus and BC Municipal Climate Leaders, like we're here to support you. We want to help you, so like reach out anytime, and yeah, just keep doing the good work. And if there's anything you want to add to a message to Minister Dix, you can shoot me a message. And also, yeah, CleanBC Review, you can reach out to Lisa. I'll just put my email in the chat. And yeah, we hope to hear from you. And we should be I'm trying to set up a call with Minister Boyle in the coming weeks or months. So I will be reaching out to share those details. And I wanted to say Minister Dix wants to come back and meet with elected officials in the first week of March. So I have a tentative date I'm scheduling with his staff. So stay tuned for that, because he wants to be able to speak more plainly once the budget is announced on how we can and municipal affairs. So definitely want to talk about housing and a lot of the things that Lisa covered today about step codes and that sort of thing. We want to bring Minister Boyle in, and Minister Boyle was a longtime member of the BC MCLC steering committee and involved in Climate Caucus. So definitely want to plant some seeds with Minister Boyle on housing and municipal affairs. So that's about all I have.
Thank you. So thank you for that. It actually wasn't as I was thinking it was going to be worse, to be honest, with the review information. So there is some hope there. I really appreciate the information, you guys coming today and sharing that. For those of you who know me, my previous profession was a psychologist, and I can't get over that first Menti page. I hear you on your frustration, but I gotta say, it's the people here on this call and me seeing the work that you're doing that gives me hope. So thank you, all of you, for all the work that you do, including attending these meetings. I will quickly say that the next call is February 27th, and that these calls are monthly on the fourth Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm very aware of the time because I know there's a BC Ferries meeting for all the island folk, which is why we've lost a few of them. So I was just trying to be wrapping up on time. So I guess I will wrap up unless Zoe had any final comments or anything that needed to be said. But as I said, the next call, February 27th, and hopefully we'll see everyone there.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Really appreciate you sharing, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, CaroleAnn. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, everyone. Nice seeing you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, everyone.